Hello and welcome to Chinese Hero to Hero. Sorry I started a little bit late because there was a problem with the software. All right, so in this video, I'll show you how you can get corrections on your errors and how not to do so, what kind of pitfalls you have to avoid. This is part of the Learning Strategies series. Make sure to watch the other ones too. I'll attach a link to the playlist in the description, or you can just simply use this link right here. First, a common mistake is that a lot of people will either speak to an AI or ask an AI to give you corrections immediately, or some may write a short little piece of text like this, and then they'll get their feedback and get the corrections right away. This is the mistake that I unfortunately made when I first was studying Japanese last year. As you can see in this screenshot, I wrote a sentence in broken Japanese here, and then I give it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT gave me a evaluation of 1 out of 5, which means terrible, and then it pointed out all of my errors. And then I give a second corrected sentence, and then ChatGPT now says, okay, now this is 4 out of 5, and then they give me a whole bunch of corrections, and then they give me the right sentence. The problem with this approach, the very naive approach that I underwent last year in Japan, was that this kind of feedback is very unfocused, right? You get a mixed bag of errors based on a very small sample of your production. In this case, it's based on just one little sentence. There's no way to see the overall pattern of your errors since you're only giving it a very tiny little sample. What's much better is a focused approach to error correction. That is, you first generate a lot of text, right? You write a lot or you speak a lot. And then you give that large quantity of text to an AI to get corrections, but then you get to analyze it so that you can discover where your errors principally lie. This way you can zoom in or swoop in on those errors and then address them in a more focused way. Let me explain that with an example. Right. So this is also backed by SLA, or second language acquisition research, as shown in this book by Ellis and Shintani right here, quoting Farrokhi and Sattarpour, 2012. They stated a focused corrective feedback is much more effective than unfocused corrective feedback, just because this focused approach is more intensive, and you are a lot more likely to notice these errors and be able to correct them in a more systematic way. Now let's go through a real example of how you can get effective error feedback so that you can apply it to your Mandarin learning right away. First, as we mentioned, you first need to write a lot, or you need to speak a lot, and then generate a lot of text that contain those errors. Right? Without a large data set, there's no way for you to actually observe what kind of patterns are you, what kind of errors you're making. You're not able to observe the kind of pattern in your errors. So if you write, you can, for example, dedicate half an hour to an hour every day just for writing. As for what to write, you can either write about your day, or you can write about what you did to improve your Chinese, for example, or whatever thought that comes to your mind. Just make writing Chinese as part of your daily routine. As an example, shown here is the Japanese journal entries I wrote as my Japanese learning routine. Notice that for this particular entry, I wrote it by hand, actually, right? And then I attached it as an image to my notes, followed by a digitally transcribed version, right? So this is the transcribed version, and that's the scan of my writing. Having a daily writing habit like this is not only helpful to get corrective feedback, but it can also help you have a track record of your language learning process. So I can compare my writing from an earlier time to a later time and see how it really progressed, right? So it's a good idea to give yourself some kind of record as to your Chinese progress. As for what to write, you can also write whatever is needed. You need to write anyways, right? For example, if you're in school, you may have school assignments. You can just maybe write parts of it in Chinese and then continue it in English, right? So writing that in Chinese will first help you generate some ideas, and then you can finish it off in English and then submit it in English, right? For example. And other things like book reviews or internet comments or whatever you need to write in daily life, and just write some of it in Chinese and just do it for half an hour a day or an hour a day, and then you can get some writing so that you can get corrective feedback later. Additionally, it's good to alternate between writing digitally and also writing it by hand, right? But because each will involve a different thinking process that can affect your outcome. So for example, when you're writing, a lot of time you're distracted by these spelling corrections and these input methods, and it's a different process than just writing it by hand, right? So you need to be able to get used to both modalities so that you can have a balanced skill set. For the handwriting pieces, you can take a picture of your writing with a camera and then upload it to an AI like ChatGPT. In this case, it's ChatGPT 4.0, and then have it transcribe it to you. In this case, I'm using a GPT called Echo. You can access GPTs from this button right here. You see GPT, and you can search for this GPT called Echo. It will just echo out whatever text or image you give it. In this case, the link is also attached here for your reference. I'll also paste that in the description of this video. You can use it to transcribe your handwriting. It's generally pretty good at recognizing my handwriting, right? Well, I still have to make some corrections, but it gets most of it correct. Now, if you prefer to speak, you can use this technique that I can show you. First, if you have an AI like ChatGPT, there is often a microphone icon in the chat box. You can tap on that, right? Tap on this microphone icon, and then you can speak. And after a while, you can press stop, or you can press send, and then you can copy out the text that it has transcribed. Or alternatively, these days, if you have a ChatGPT Plus subscription, you also have this button. This is the meeting recording button. If you press on that, you can record a very long conversation up to 2 hours, and then it will be able to recognize all the text, right? Just make sure that when you after the meeting transcription is done, make sure that you ask ChatGPT to give me back the text with the errors intact, right, without making any changes, because ChatGPT by default will smooth out all the errors. That's not what you want, right? You want a sample of your real speech. So these are some of the approaches to use speaking as a modality to get your error-prone text. Now, as for speaking, we also recognize that speaking is much faster than writing. So if you want to generate a lot of text very fast, maybe speaking is actually a better idea. However, speaking can also make you a little bit tense. Like sometimes you're like, oh, I'm not sure how to say it. But when you're writing, you can think about it more. You have more time to really elaborate your thoughts. But when you're speaking, you kind of feel like you're on the spot. So it's a trade-off, right? So practice both modalities, writing and speaking. Now, let's say that you write about 500 to 1,000 characters a day. After you have done it for a week, you will have collected probably about 3,500 to 7,000 characters of writing. Shown on the screen here is what I wrote in Japanese over the course of a few days. And this is then my data set for the purpose of error correction. But for the purpose of this video, let's use some Chinese data set, so that's more helpful for you as a Chinese learner. This is downloaded from the CGED datasets from GitHub. The reference is listed at the very end, of the video. If you are curious, you can go check it out. The URL, the URL's at the very end in the reference list. But for you, you will use the text that you have written. In this video, I'll use the text in this corpus, but for you, use the text that you have written. Then you copy and paste this prompt into the AI chat box, and then paste all the text that you have written between the text tags, right? So in this case, I copy pasted the text in the corpus, but you can just copy paste in your text, right? The text that you wrote. And after that, ChatGPT will give you this big table. First, it will show you the wrong sentences that you wrote, and then it will show you the correct forms, and then it will categorize it by type and subtype, and then it will give you a comment. So you can then copy and paste that table into a Excel sheet or a spreadsheet or Google Sheets, and then you can sort them by type, right? Sort the errors by type or sort them by subtype, and then you can observe, okay, what is it that what are the frequent errors that I make? What's the type of error that I frequently make? And be aware that AIs aren't correct all the time, right? So sometimes they can categorize it as the wrong type, or it's just making the wrong kind of analysis. It usually makes the corrections pretty well, but as for why that correction is made, sometimes the AI is not very good at pointing that out. So you need to kind of read through this and make any manual adjustment as necessary, right? So this is also an exercise to help you improve your language, to be able to aware of what kind of mistakes you're making, and so that not only are you getting a more accurate data set, but you're also working to improve your Mandarin as well. To help you categorize your errors, here are the kinds of errors that you might make in your writing. First is the syntactical errors, and so these so there is an issue with the sentence itself. For example, a missing particle like le or de, or a redundant word like le or de, wrong word order, often seen in beginners, and also wrong connector words like 而且, right? Like 而且 or 和, etc. And then there are the morphological errors. For example, if you're missing a structural particles like the, right? Instead of saying 我的书, and you write 我书, right? So that's wrong, missing a the, or messing up separable verbs or reduplication. For example, 散散步. Some people may say 散步散步, right? That's wrong. You should say 散散步. Pragmatics, that is things like politeness, things like you're writing something that, for example, you're writing a job application and you're addressing the other company as 你的公司, right? That is a no-no. In Chinese, you have to say 贵公司, right? 贵公司. So that's a pragmatic error. That is errors with politeness or formality or the genre of writing that you're engaging in, right? So that's pragmatics. Lexical is very frequent. It's a very frequent type of error. Word choice, idiom choice, wrong collocation, wrong classifier. We're going to look at that in more detail. And orthography, just writing the wrong characters, right? Or missing a stroke in your character, or substituting one character for another. So these are the main error types: syntactical, morphological, pragmatics, lexical, and orthographical. From the table in your spreadsheet, we can see some errors that are just very frequent. For example, character errors, like instead of writing 性别, instead of writing 性别 or gender, you wrote 性别, right? Using the wrong 性 in this case. Or you're using the wrong collocations, like, for example, the student wrote 打下经验. Right, that's wrong. Usually it should be 打下基础, right, to lay a foundation. But you don't lay your experience, you accumulate your experience, right? It should be 积累经验, 积累经验, for example, right? So that's collocation error. And you also notice that there are a lot of issues with missing particles like de and le. And then you also notice that there are word choice errors. As for the character errors and the collocation errors and the word choice errors, it's really hard to do that systematically. It's more like a case-by-case correction, right? You have to just focus on each one at a time. But for structural errors like missing particles, like these, we can actually address them in a more systematic way, which is what we're going to focus on in this example. So based on the errors you made, you can then do targeted practice on them. So let's say that you have a problem with missing the or inserting the in the wrong places. For example, here are the sentences. 按照联合国专家预算， 生育率趋势还是会减速 right? We should add a 的 in here. 生育率的趋势还是会减速。Or sometimes you might be adding a 的extraneously. For example, 这个国家不会如人口过多的国家的乱 right? You just get rid of it. And then 不会如人口过多的国家乱 right? This is just a use of 如 right? You don't say 如 something 的 you just say 如 right? So based on these examples, we can either refer to a grammar book or you can refer to the Chinese 0 to Hero lessons. For example, if you can go to this particular part of language player, if you go to languageplayer.io, go to the Chinese section, go to resources, grammar, right? Then you can then you will be able to search the grammar points that contain the kind of particle that's in question. Or you can use this particular GPT that I made called HSK grammar point lookup. You can, for example, ask this particular GPT, hey, list all grammar points that include the, and then ChatGPT will then give you all the grammar points that include this, including links to the lessons that you can review the grammar points for. All right, so these are two ways. You can look up the grammar points on the language player website and get to the Chinese 0 to Hero videos, or you can ask this particular GPT. The link is right here, and then the GPT will then decide which are the lessons you need to review. Alternatively, we can also let ChatGPT generate a set of review questions with this prompt, right? Just copy and paste this prompt into ChatGPT, but just paste in the part of the table that we have discussed, right? Paste in your spreadsheet, but only paste in the rows that contain the type of error you want to focus on, right? In this case, these are two rows that deal with the missing particle the, or extraneous particle the. And then ChatGPT will give you a set of exercises, right? It will give you a sentence like this, and it will ask you, is this sentence correct? Right? And then you have to decide, and then you find out that, okay, the answer key is that this is incorrect. It's because it's missing the structural particle, and you need to insert a the after 明显, right? You need to insert a the right here. And the second question is, let's 看图来比一比，我们会看的很明显的发现，在1950年时，全球只有6亿人口。Is this sentence correct? It is correct. No changes needed, right? 我们很明显的发现 because this is already included. I generally find that if you're using ChatGPT, the thinking model is a little bit better, or alternatively, it's a thinking mini model. At this recording, we're using ChatGPT 5. I find that if you just use a quick model, it's generally not very good at handling these kind of complex requests. So just try the thinking model if you're able to. And also to note that why some places the is required and other places it's not, it's quite complex. It's not very clear cut. And these sentences are generated by students who wrote the Taiwanese TOEFL exam, spelled TOCFL, TOEFL test. Of course, because it's Taiwan, they wrote in traditional Chinese. And these students are at the C1 level, which is equivalent to HSK 6, right? So these are quite advanced students, and they're still making these kind of errors. It just goes to show you that the is very, very tricky. Yeah, the mistake is very complicated and nuanced, and fixing these kind of errors will take some time and takes a lot of digging. But if you repeat this process every week as a habit, as a routine, you write a lot, you speak a lot, you get a lot of corrections, and then you systematically analyze all your errors and put them in some kind of spreadsheet. And then this spreadsheet will grow longer and longer and longer, and you can get more and more nuanced analysis and understanding of the kind of mistakes you make. And then this way, you are not just getting error corrections in a haphazard way, but in some more systematic and strategic way. And that's it for this video. I hope you found that helpful. In the next video, we'll talk about how you can learn a subject matter and improve your Chinese at the same time using a methodology called CLIL. I have already tried this methodology in my own Japanese learning because I've taken a semester at a university. I've just finished it actually for about 3 months, and then for all the subject matters, I try to learn it in Japanese as much as possible, right? So in the next video, I'll share what I found, and that video might just be very helpful for you, and it might even change how you learn Mandarin. So please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so, and so that you can be notified when that video becomes available. And that's it for this video, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.